A great part of it is going to come from these much maligned Think Big projects. The best one, the simplest one that I can give you is the one that I opened up in Taranaki.
It's a sense of belonging, I guess. I've lived here most of my life and, you know, a lot of my friends and family are here. Taranaki's a beautiful place, but it's got this other side that you don't really understand until you experience it for yourself firsthand. The tours that we run is an opportunity to show people what the industry looks like, and that is basically going around and showing them the sites that are here that are not obvious from the main road, that are not on the tourist maps, but are definitely here in our community affecting people that live here. And so that gives us an opportunity to make sure people understand that there is a cost to living in Taranaki that is unseen by the rest of New Zealand. So this is Cheel E well site. All around us and all the hills, over the hills, are dotted around lots of different well sites. They belong to different companies, but they feed into the production facilities in this area. So up here in the distance is Cheel Production Station. Behind me is Waihapa Production Station. And this pattern of where wells are and how they're related to the environment and the homes is repeated all through Taranaki. And this well site is pretty typical of wells and how they're set up. They've got the pad, they've got a flare stack, they've got tanks. This is a producing well site, but there's no activity here, like they're not drilling or anything like that. But I'll take you to some other sites around the place in Taranaki where they are.
That in order to avoid a situation, a disastrous 1.5 degrees Celsius rise in global temperatures and beyond, a rise that would see increased risk to human health and livelihood, civil unrest, mass drought, mass disease, loss of lands and homes, then we must act with urgency, Mr. Speaker, to ensure global emissions fall to net zero by 2050.
We're just passing the family farm now. So what happened in 2006 was that they came and asked for consent to put a well here, an exploratory well. So we'd signed in good faith the first piece of paper saying that we would give written approval for the site to establish itself next to us, thinking we were signing only for one exploratory well because that's what the piece of paper said, when actually it was attached to documents of hundreds of pages long. And we realised how people got caught out. It had effects that ranged from funny smells that we couldn't really know where it was coming from. We had had headaches, we'd had nosebleeds, we'd had rashes. And it wasn't until they came back in 2011 to sign that I started asking more questions of the district council and of the regional council. And then I realised there was a lot more to this industry than met the eye.
Essentially, the oil and gas industry in New Zealand is Taranaki. Oil and gas was actually discovered here back in the 1860s, 1870s. It's been part of our landscape for 150 years. Taranaki is the source of energy for New Zealand as far as that goes. And so it makes sense to carry on that process.
We've just arrived alongside Māngai Tea well site. It was granted consent for 8 wells and they're looking to apply for a further 12. But the issue, I guess, in the wider context is that they're looking for more oil and gas. And I think that's what's got the families in this area, some of the families, quite upset.
I mean, Abby and I have both had, you know, they've called us the old Taranaki, or, you know, Tikarangi.
The bitches of Tikarangi.
Bitches of Tikarangi.
Yeah, looking at the bitches of Tikarangi.
Yeah.
That was a local councillor.
That's a local councillor and a private email.
That got forwarded to us.
Yeah. It's 40 years that this place has been a sacrifice zone. That's how long they've been taking the gas out of here. when they were put in Think Big to make synthetic petroleum.
So that would be the same time as Kapuni too, because it is the main
it's two generations of people.
And I think a lot of people don't realise the connection between the use of our gas resources and the production of nitrogen fertilisers, because the New Zealand's nitrogen problem and the pollution of fresh water supplies can be traced back to Muldoon and his Think Big. What are we going to do with this gas? Let's make fertiliser.
Ammonia, yay!
And that's when we started overstocking farms and being dependent on adding nitrogen fertilisers, and now we're looking at the downstream effects of that.
First of all, we have to work within the Resource Management Act as it stands. And one of the concerns over the Resource Management Act that's widely recognised is that it really is a tool for local effects, the neighbourhood of an activity. And so the global issues such as climate change are not addressed through the Resource Management Act adequately. There's discussions now about how the Resource Management Act should be amended, changed, replaced, in order to provide a mechanism for dealing with those global issues more adequately.
One of the things that it feels like is that these companies are starting to position themselves so they're ahead of that. Yeah. Be nice if they explained it, what their motive is.
A key finding in the Climate Change Commission's advice was that New Zealand needs natural gas to continue as an energy supply for the next 2 or 3 decades at least. The reality is we will face our lights being turned off and our hot water running cold unless we can continue our fossil fuel-fired power generation. The alternative is to burn more coal at Huntly. The definite preference in the interim is to get more natural gas out of the ground into our power stations.
It's got such a lovely name, natural gas. You know, how much energy goes into finding it in the first place, drilling the shit out of it, producing from it, that's hardly natural. We're in the middle between Kapuni Production Station and Kapuni Gas Treatment Plant. The wells have pipes running through the farms around here to this site, and what they're doing here is producing the gas, getting it ready for market. It'll go through into the gas treatment plant, and then it'll be piped out from there and ready to go to market for people to use. So they have some consent conditions that allow them to discharge contaminants here, but the issue for this particular site in proximity to water is just beyond this site is the water treatment station for the South Taranaki area. It takes water from bores and from the stream in this area as well, has a water take. And the concern that Energy Watch had here was the proximity to the plant. This whole area has been fracked. And so our concern has always been that the water being picked up for the public consumption is going to be affected by it. I don't think you can legitimately say what we have now in this capitalist society we're going to replicate over here using a different energy format. I actually think the whole issue around carbon and lowering our emissions and things is about the way we live our lives as well. And I feel like until we get our heads completely around that, the conversation is a much wider one. It is about oil and gas, but it's also about a whole lot of other things.
Back in 2010, the oil and gas industry really opened up with lots of permit blocks offered.
Yeah.
And Pariaka was within a really big one. First idea really was, well, we need to tell them we don't want it. So, we spent a couple of months drafting a letter and then got our 3 marae kaitiaki to sign it for us on behalf of the whole community. And, sent that letter off in 2011 to all the companies, the government, different political parties, the UN, just wherever we could, basically saying, if you frack around here or drill around here, it's bad for the climate, bad for our people as kaimai. Yeah, and we didn't hear back, nothing. And then when the next map came out a year later, there was a square around Pariaka, so yeah, pretty interesting.
It'd be nice to have a whole square around Taranaki.
Totally. And it'll come, because it just has to. Like, we've only got, 9 years left to sort out our fossil fuel emissions on the planet, so I think we have no choice.
That's right.
Yeah. And it slowly whittled down just over the last decade to just being a Taranaki, so we're getting there. This is the last frontier.
Yeah.
The only hope is in future generations. And we've left a hell of a legacy.
I think doom has come. We've passed the threshold. I've watched this industry now since 1979, since I went to the first hearing. I'm not hopeful at all. I think we've really doomed. We've f***ed it up. We really f***ed it up. Yeah, I'm not hopeful at all.
So this is Greymouth Production Station, and the Greymouth well sites are in this location, and they all feed back into here. You can see the heat waves coming off from over there, so they're possibly flaring. I thought I saw some smoke just before as well. But they're, again, a production facility just processing the product for market. Oh, here we go. Can you see it? They're flaring in behind. Can you see behind there? They're burning off hydrocarbon, obviously. They're bringing it into the flare pit, but they're supposed to have a clean flare, so it's supposed to burn everything off hot, so there is no waste. So it is combusted properly. I feel like there's a few obstacles to fully phasing out oil and gas in New Zealand, partly because of the reliance on it so far. But I'd like to think that in small ways, through communities, that we will be able to get there. Yeah.